two members online. Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
So let's get moving, if we can, please, through our agenda here. The first thing is the minutes from the March Audit and Finance Committee meeting. I take a motion from John, second. Sarah was first. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then second, the draft minutes from our special audit meeting on the 24th of March. Any questions, comments?
Motion.
John, thank you. Stu?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Amy, I think we're up to you and the financials for March.
Yep. So first we'll go over the statement of net position. As of March 31st, our cash balance was $3.9 million. We had accounts receivable of $635,000, other current assets of $1.1 million, with total current assets being $5.6 million. Depreciation was $11.4 million, with total fixed assets at $70.8 million, giving us total assets of $76.5 million. For liabilities, our accounts payable was $203,000. Accrued expenses of roughly $190,000. Total other current liabilities was $1.2 million, with total liabilities of $1.4 million, giving us an ending balance of total liabilities and equity of $76.5 million. Any questions? Okay, so moving on to the statement of revenue and expenses. For the first quarter at the Albany Capitol Center, we had actuals of revenue of $289,000 with a year-to-date budget of $460,000. Total operating expenses at the Capitol Center for first quarter were $584,000 for the year-to-date budget of $636,000. Giving us a total loss of $295,000 for actuals against budget of $176,000 loss. For the authority, ending March 31st, we had total income of $758,000 against the budget of $623,000. Total operating expenses were $690,000 for actuals against the budget of $762,000, giving us a net income of roughly $68,000 for actuals against a budgeted loss of $139,000. The total loss for Q1 was $227,000 for actuals against a budgeted amount loss of $315,000. Any questions?
Thank you. Good.
Okay. Digging out. Operations updates. Discover Albany. Jay?
Good morning.
Maybe like, okay, I don't know. That's fine. No, I'm watching the camera and.
Yeah. We tried to check,
Yeah.
tried to block this with
Okay.
the director this morning
Okay.
before I got here. This is my debut appearance here. Good morning. On behalf of Jill Delaney, I'd like to present the economic impact report presented by Discover Albany. If we go to the second slide, it does discuss the mission statement for this report and the methodology we use to calculate these numbers. Destination International Event Impact Calculator has been used since the beginning. And almost since the beginning, I've been the one supervising the calculations. If there are any specific questions regarding the methodology, we're always available, as well as discussions during the audit committee is also fairly robust on the methodology. So if you have any questions about that, we always put the slide in there just to remind people that this isn't just a number that we pull out of a bingo ball, but there is significant work done to present as accurate an assessment of the impact of each event and the total impact. Next slide. Direct spending totals for Q1 2022. On this chart, we can see where we've achieved some success as to the reason we built the building. The building was constructed to host conventions, which is one of the largest economic generators for impact in the meeting types that we are able to host here. For the first quarter of 2022, 4 events with just over $1.5 million in economic impact direct spending for the first quarter. We should be very, very happy about that. And as you move kind of down the line, you know, meetings, events, public events, not as robust, but as we look back, we are reminded that January was essentially a whiteout with the Omicron resurgence. It's almost May, and we have to look back that far to January, but we have to remind ourselves that there was a significant amount of either cancellation or failure to close on a deal or rescheduling of events from January. So while the large events still took place, which provided the event impact, the smaller events either canceled or were truncated in size. As we look down the slide to the far right, the one other, as a reminder, is the New York State Law Examiner's proctoring of the bar exam. This is the return to in-person bar examinations for February, and that's a good sign of things returning. The online bar exam, we hope, is a thing of the past.
And they're coming again in July?
Correct.
Yeah, I didn't want to steal Shannon's thunder. I felt really bad. Every time I say, oh, and it's booked again, I feel as though.
Okay.
But yes, Shannon and her team have sealed the deal, staying in contact with the law examiners. I know our office on the services end, it's a very intensive service event as well. We've been working with them intensely as well. Mazzone has a hyperlink on our webpage to sell lunches directly to attendees who are taking the exam. So there's a lot of cohesion within the destination.
And Jay, in this case in July, it's Shannon that's going to be here, correct?
They are considering it. They haven't 100% booked anything. They're seeing how many test takers are registering and signing up.
They exceed the capacity of this center, correct?
Correct. As of right now, I believe we're the only ones they've signed.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
But fewer than past when they were virtual.
Yeah.
As we turn to the next slide, it gives just a hint of normalcy for the Q1 highlights. Again, convention business returns. New York Craft Brewers Association was a fantastic event. New York State Council of School Superintendents is really one of those tentpole conventions that we look forward to and work really hard to contain in our destination. So we're thrilled that we're already working on future years for that as well. Public events keep the building humming. And then, as I mentioned, the return of the law examiners proctoring the bar exam is a wonderful sign. Moving to the next slide, kind of a summary of the numbers. Total spending, $2.2 million, in excess of $2.2 million. Total sales tax, $229,009. State sales tax, $102,294. County just a little bit above, $124,715. Total visitors generated, 11,554. Total hotel rooms generated, 2,233. And again, as a reminder, January was almost a complete wash. I think there were only 3 events, and they were very, very small.
Very tiny.
Yeah, so, total events 21, full-time equivalents number, is modest, and if you look back to the graph, 12 events that generate just over, $100,000 worth of, activities, just not really driving full-time equivalents. But the hint of normalcy, as mentioned in the highlights, tells us that there are good things to come. Next slide. Comparing year over year is really not much of a comparison. Excel really is, it's hard to calculate percentage growth over zero for Excel. So, really the bottom chart is really more illustrative than the bars themselves. If there's a big white space, that means there was, that's percentage change or dollars changed. So you can really see convention coming roaring back is just very welcome. Public events coming back. Sports in the first quarter of 21, we had a little bit of activity, not so much this year, but again, convention really kind of crowds out some of those lesser impactful events, particularly during midweek. So, and then moving to the final slide here, the life of the building slide. Again, close to our birthday here, so total spending $57,429,333. Total sales tax $6.6 million. State sales tax 3.2. County sales tax 3.3. Total visitors generated 374, 313. These are good numbers. Total events broke the 700 marker. Certainly, things are on the upward trend as long as we maintain a vigorous sales effort, and I think we're doing the right things, rebooking the people who are coming back. Any questions? And then we do an outlook report. There was some conversation at the committee about what this report might look like in the future. So right now, we're pretty much doing what we've always done. So at the end, we'll have a slide with 4 bar charts instead of the 3. But certainly, the further we get away from 2019, the comparison to 2019 becomes less valuable, particularly in the hotel realm. It's a what have you done for me lately? Where can we find profit now kind of thing. Moving to the next slide. STR does do a health of the hotel industry report. We took a look at it, and we pulled this particular quote out of the report, and the last line is bolded by Discover Albany, just so that people understand. The upper upscale and upscale segments are the largest, where the largest deficits for top line performance takes place. And what does that mean? I had to look up what upper upscale hotels are just to make sure I was being accurate. But what that means for our market, so STR is saying these 2 segments are suffering the most. And what that means for our market, unfortunately, is the Renaissance, the Hilton, the Albany Marriott are in the upper upscale, and these are segments that are suffering the most in the hotel industry as a whole. And then upscale hotels in our market are ones like the Crowne Plaza and the Hilton Garden Inn Albany Med. And that doesn't include all the hotels that are real drivers or real support facilities for this building, but they fall off into the mid-scale, or there's a categorization that has parameters. So just as an overall view, there is still some concerns working with our properties, making sure that they are able to continue their service levels and continue being supportive partners. A lot of conversation when we can get them on the phone because they're busy.
That's a big chunk of our inventory, right?
Yeah, it's the big dogs. It certainly does indicate that you know, while everybody feels as though the industry is recovering, recovery for the segments that support this building is coming slower than, say, a recovery of a long-term stay property or the independence and the luxury segments.
Billy,
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard from them, if you've had the opportunity, are they mirroring the national trend?
So these are percentages on a national trend. I spent a day with the director of sales of one of our larger hotels, and yeah, they're struggling mightily.
the only one that's really not now is the Renaissance,
Yeah.
but that was literally when you guys opened back up at the Capitol, the switch flipped for them and they were full.
Right. So
That's, they're just the outlier because of their proximity.
Yeah.
We've heard from all of the Albany hotels, and each of the ones listed have reached out to look for assistance or for help because of their lagging
Yeah.
in recovery.
next slide. CBRE hotel research. I pulled this slide together only just to give us a sense of other reasons why hotels may be having difficulty recovering. Wage pressure certainly is hurting margins. On top of wage pressure, job openings per hotel is 63% above 2019 levels. So for every hotel that had, empty jobs in 2019, they've got 63% more empty jobs in 2022. That clearly comes across in speed to proposal, speed to contract, speed to address service issues. I was on a panel for MPI, and the association meeting planners were interested in what, the CVB DMOs were seeing, but it was an overwhelming, we're afraid to come in the building and not have anybody to help us out. So certainly, the TSA throughput is at 90% of 2019 levels. And while I'm optimistic about that, I just constantly read in the newspaper about airlines canceling summer flights and, having difficulty staffing airplanes. That's more anecdotal, but to me, that's the canary in the coal mine where we have to have some concern. But Albany International is busy. Their numbers are coming in slowly, so I couldn't include them in this slide, but we'll have some kind of slide highlighting that when next quarter.
And the job openings also affects inventory, right? It is affecting
Yeah,
inventory.
the closed room lots.
Closed
You
rooms,
can just take
yeah.
them out of inventory.
Yeah.
And it's also not only affecting their response time, but their comfort in responding to larger events down the road, because they just don't know what they're gonna be able to put out there. I mean, now that we have a new GM at the Hilton, maybe we'll get a little bit more engagement there, but, it's a struggle, because if they wanna book something big, they wanna make sure that it's gonna drive food and beverage in the hotel, or it's maybe not worth it to them. So there's the struggle with how to support this building that we've always had.
On the next slide, just kind of gives an overview of a little bit of hotel count in our market. It was reported that the Town Place Suites extended stay property that converted to the Pine Bush Suites, apartments, and long-term stay combo. It's our understanding that they're gonna release those last 30 rooms and go full apartment by the August of this year. And again, while that's not necessarily a huge driver for our market, it's just 30 additional rooms that will not be available for guests coming in on a short-term stay possibility. Crest Hill Suites, Washington Avenue closed on December 1st. Ostensibly for renovations. We had private, personal conversations with them, but it's, the driveway's barricaded and they have other development plans. That's a guest room loss of 94 rooms. And then we have been in conversation with the developer for the Hyatt Place on Quackenbush Square. They've revised their room count to 110 with a projected opening of March 1st of 2023.
Which apparently is not what they're telling the media. Just 'cause if you saw this morning, that Mike DeMasi did an article, we spoke yesterday, he said their official word is we're still getting financing in order, but their Pioneer is going to be the general contractor for this. That's the plan now, so.
Back to where we started.
We are, since 2017, this has been the cycle that we've been in our
Okay.
backyard. So I don't hang your hat on March 1st, but that's what, they want to be ready for NCAA March Madness when it's back here in March. So that was my, please open in March.
And then anecdotally, it's not on the slide, but every conversation I have with a director of sales or a general manager ends with, you don't have to tell me the exact number if you don't want to, but how many rooms are you simply not opening up to availability to sell for supply reasons or staffing reasons? And to a hotelier, I've had no hotel say, oh, I have 100% of my inventory for sale 100% of the time. You know, it could be as small as 3 rooms due to cannibalization during the COVID process, and they haven't been able to get a specific hard good or some kind of renovation that's just very difficult to complete. And it could be as high as whole floors or wings of buildings. So that's concerning as well. And then to the next slide, that kind of data feeds into occupancy, and this report was due before we got the March number. March number was just over 55% occupancy. We're looking at the red line here, and as you can see, the very dark blue line is the 2019 standard upon which we were comparing ourselves. Early 2020 was trending very well, so we were beating 2019, which was a historically good year for the entire industry. So the red line is, you know, we're trending below 2020 and 2019, which were good years, but we're on the right trajectory. And at 55% occupancy for the month of March, we're clearly closing into that just over 60% occupancy mark for March. So we're doing pretty well. It's different business, and we're working on getting a better handle on what that business looks like. Next slide is the RevPAR recovery comparison. Again, not as robust. You know, certainly we have a ways to go still here on the RevPAR recovery. I think some of this is occupancy driven, and while our occupancy report is good, it doesn't account for rooms that are technically not sellable but are not being reported as not available for sale. So if I'm a 100-room hotel and I have 4 rooms out of order for the last 120 days, I'm not reporting I have 96 rooms. I'm still reporting the 100. So getting to 100% occupied is impossible. So this is hurting RevPAR, of course, as well. But, you know, we're hanging in there. Certainly, we're going to figure out a better way to maybe represent some of this information that makes a little more sense.
I was just going to say, we talked about this at the Economic Impact Committee meeting, best way to represent these.
Well, I think one of the things that comes into play is we get the actual data from the county when we get our occupancy tax check.
Right.
And you can see that the check was higher than the numbers on these reports would indicate, which is a good thing. It's nice to have the pleasant surprise, but we can kind of do some comparisons to what's actually being generated in here, just because, you know, to only be 5% off of 2019 with January being so dead was a really pleasant surprise.
Well, that's what we keep saying. It's a different kind of business.
Yeah.
Right.
And we just need to hammer that.
Right, and we almost need STR to shift how they're reporting. We've had conversations with some of the executives there, and, you know, they understand that the report isn't as meaningful with these pieces of data that are not quite accurate, but, you know, do you make the switch now, or do you just ride it until it's normal again?
Drive yourself nuts making the switches.
Right, exactly, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So we all just put the asterisk and explain it.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thank you. Any
you.
questions? Okay, Ms. Shannon, I believe you're up to give us good news.
I always try to do that for you, Michelle. Okay, so first, I'd like to introduce the two guests with me today. Craig Liston, obviously our regional VP of the Convention Center segment. I know many of you in this room have met him before. Anna Nash, who's just stepped out, she is our VP of Marketing Development. So they've been with us since yesterday, visiting, and welcome them to the board meeting today. Sorry, Evan, I'm in front of you. So if you want to go to the first slide, to echo Jay's comments, really after the bar exam in February, we were sort of off to the races again with events. We were all very excited for March, with the combination of conventions and events. We had one sporting event, we had one public show, we had Dropkick Murphys. I mean, it was really, March was the perfect combination for us, and it was really successful. And then we ended the month, of course, with NICET. Which was sort of the cherry on the top. That convention brought in over 2,200 people between our facility and the Empire State Plaza and the Egg. So it was really, really a successful, I would say, 30-day run plus for us. April, we're topping off at about 20 events. And May, we're very much looking forward to having another full calendar of about 27 events. So we're definitely starting to see an uptick. Last-minute bookings is definitely the name of the game. We get people looking for stuff within 7 days, within 10 days, within 15 days. But right now, the booking window is very small. But to go into the full report, since the last time we chatted, we've had an additional 43 events book, which is wonderful. I've just highlighted a few to call out. Albany Veg Fest, which is a trade show for us that has been very popular in the past with over 3,000 people in attendance, is back. Ginsburg's annual food trade show. NISO came back for 5 separate meetings in April. House of Kicks is another trade show. It's a sneaker convention that's been with us several times. Bar exam, of course, as we mentioned. The home show. Rubik's Cube is coming back. We also have the New York State Liquor Store Association. Their annual trade show will be with us. And New York Health Plan Association conference as well. So again, you're seeing a mix of events, a little bit heavier on trade show and meetings right now. I think they're the ones that are looking to kind of get back to it. And slowly but surely we're getting back to convention world and, the ones that we love. So that tops us off at 116 events for 2022 with 179 event days, a little over 55,000 people, and 8,619 for hotel room nights estimated. And we have an additional 8 contracts issued for 2022. And I hate reporting this number, but it's the reality of what Jay was just talking about. We have had a total of 9 events completely canceled for 2022 due to COVID. Some of those events have rescheduled. I would say 4 of those events have rescheduled for later in the year, while the rest have completely canceled for the year and they're looking to go for the following year. Interestingly enough, in our December calendar, where we usually see a lot of holiday parties, holiday party trend, it's, not really coming back to the market so much. We had 2 major parties decide not to hold for 2022 again. People we have worked with since 2017. Our one major holiday party has a contract and is looking to move forward, but our 2 others that usually are anchors, 3 weekends in a row in December, have decided to take another break and push it for the next year. So that's been interesting. We have some holes in December that I got to work on, but I think we'll readily be able to fill them. As far as leads go, I think I'm echoing Discover Albany. Things are definitely picking up. We're getting a lot of phone calls for last minute stuff that we're having to push out because a lack of availability, lack of space, or just, the timing isn't right for what they're looking for. Discover Albany, over the past 2 months, we've had 4 leads for quite a few hotel room nights in attendance. All of those leads have been meeting based. And for us, we calculated at least about 20 leads coming in, 6,000 plus attendees, but they're a mix of everything still from religious gatherings, a lot of religious gatherings right now. A lot of people looking for church space. You know, a lot of people still looking for basketball courts and sporting venues, and a myriad of still continuous outreach about concerts, general admission space, fashion shows, you know, the latter. We've had quite a bit of that over the last, I'd say, 2 weeks in particular. But if you want to go to the next one, Evan, taking a look at 2023, we're still a little slow on this year. We've had about that's an error, 4 events that have contracted for since we've last spoken. It's a New York Healthcare Association board meeting, a spring home show, a bridal expo, and a prom have all committed for 2023. I had 3 major galas finally choose their dates for 2023, so those contracts will go out this week. The chamber has moved to June instead of March. I'm not quite sure whether they'll ever go back to that March pattern, but ironically, the other 2 galas were waiting for the chamber to pick their dates so that they could shift appropriately along with them. So it was sort of a domino effect there.
So you need another season of dresses.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, everyone's going to go from the longer sleeves now to a summer dress.
Right.
You're absolutely right, Jill. You're absolutely right. But, you know, definitely 2023 is coming through. We still are very slow on getting people to commit to signing, and even more so committing to a date. Getting people to actually nail down what date they want to go with is definitely a struggle right now.
And Shannon, you and I have talked about that kind of shift, like the chamber.
Yeah.
And, you know, you say Black and Puerto Rican caucus, wait, they're not supposed to be here now.
Yeah, it's definitely, and you know, that's my last comment on this slide is how we're tracking. You know, from where we were to where we are today, you know, the number, having 10 being, you know, our future year number definitely is a little worrisome. But, you know, knowing in 2019 we were at 27 at this time last year, it's not too far off from what we're used to seeing. But I think it, you know, understanding that people are really struggling to find, you know, what they'd like to do. And to Michelle's point, my main concern will continue to be what the compression will do to all of our calendars and how that will affect getting new business in, because dates that we traditionally will need to fill, we no longer can fill because our consistent business is now shifting into a new period, opening new dates for us to now fill December, January, February. First quarter seems to be the challenge right now to get back into it. But what that holds for the future for our calendar and the region.
Right.
You know, I have a lot of events that were in Q1 that seem to be having a permanent switch to second quarter, third quarter. I have 2 trade shows that will never go back to January again. I have a lot of people who have switched in this last calendar year from January to March that want to stay in March. So it's interesting. It's definitely event roulette right now, trying to, you know, figure out where we can shift. And I think I've challenged more date holds in the last probably 30 days than I probably have since I started in 2015. I mean, it really is, okay, I have someone that wants your date. Do you want to shift somewhere else? Or can you shift somewhere else? Or we've definitely played that game. Well, it's not really a game, but we've definitely played that card more so than none.
Shannon, are we concerned that so many are moving out of what are typically our slow months anyway, that this trend is going to be, you know, January stays pretty even more dead than our usual dead? Or,
you know, I'm hopeful that, you know, the volume of short-term booking that we're seeing hopefully will help fill some of that. I mean, hopefully the circle will come full circle at some
Right.
point. You know,
March
events
was
that
already busy.
events that traditionally we can't take in January or February because we haven't had availability, maybe we'll be able to softly start filling those in. You know, the bridal shows and the home shows that are always in those first quarters, maybe we can start siphoning some of those in, you know, and find other niches. Do you mind if I mention, you know, Jay has been working very, very hard on a pickleball tournament for our destination and for our building. They have committed to 2 years, and that will be in January. So that's a nice piece of business for, you know, just what we're talking about, which is sort of backfilling the calendar a little bit and finding a new opportunity to have that fill. So I think eventually we will. I just think, like everything else, it's just going to take a little bit of time to identify what we can try and backfill in those areas for sure.
The other thing that may affect us is state associations. because
Correct.
We've had openings in the past that have been reserved, held, not available. These state associations will meet in January, February, so
Yeah.
we still have that as an offshoot of the Empire State Plaza.
Yeah, and that's one of my biggest pushes. The SA Annual Trade Show that we go every single year is a trade show for New York State associations. And that is my big focus for our booth and for our messaging, and everything for that show is, really kind of going back to 2015 when I first started and saying, when are you meeting? It's maybe have some incentives to meet in January, February timeframe so we can fill a little bit, so. Any other questions? Okay. Sure.
Going back to the events that were canceled
Mm-hmm.
and some have rescheduled.
Yeah.
Are they rescheduling for the same number of people as they did originally, or are they dropping down?
It's a great question. I can't quite answer that in a black and white. They are rescheduling with the hopes that having it later in the year will have their numbers shift back up. We had a convention over this last weekend, Natural History. They had switched it till April instead of earlier in the year, hoping that they would have a little bit more of attendance base. They still didn't get as much as they were hoping. So, I think the hope is, yes, they are going to catch those numbers. Certainly, I can say that galas have been much more successful with that. All of the galas that have shifted to this Q2 versus Q1, their numbers have been where they've needed or even more. But I think the meetings are still a little slow to realize their full 100% potential. Although, it was a full house. So, it really depends on the culture of people and whether they're ready or not, or at least so.
Do you see the
seems.
hybrid component continuing?
We haven't seen it too much here. We've seen several clients that have done some recordings of sessions and use those for return on investment later, to have people be able to access those. I haven't seen too much streamed. We actually, ironically, had a rap battle 2 weekends ago that streamed to a rap channel. So that was one, sort of a different type of scenario. But to your comment, as far as meetings go, in this market, we haven't seen a ton of desire for the hybrid component. It seems like people are going in one way or another. You're going to be in person, or they're going to be all virtual. There hasn't maybe 10% is the latter of doing some recordings or some streaming in the process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're seeing hybrids not working well for the audience.
Yeah.
I mean, even nationally, I'm sure you've seen too, like doesn't matter how great your AV is, the person not just sitting there at their desk trying to, attend Destinations International convention.
The attention span just isn't.
And they're paying for a much less robust experience, and
Yeah.
they're lacking all the networking. So it's starting to be scaled back across the board. It's just not as appealing.
And for an association or anyone, it's a heavy lift because you almost have to plan two different shows.
do.
Yeah.
And to keep the engagement on the virtual side is almost twice as hard.
Right.
You always-
Recordings are the better way to do it if it's possible.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, you want to move on to the next one, Evan? This is sort of just a breakdown of where we're at with the type of events. Convention still seems to be, very strong with 25 budgeted, and we're at about 4, so we've got a little bit to make up there. Trade shows are coming along, public shows we've exceeded. Social, I think we'll come close to exceeding by the end of the year. Meetings are definitely trending, that 43 versus 68, you can see how that number's starting to pick up. Sporting events, we're not able to accommodate as much as we used to because the calendar's filling up with other stuff, so that number is staying low. All in all, we're at about 54% of, where ASM has budgeted for the year of 216 events. So we definitely got a push to go for the rest of the year, but if it's like the next 2 months, I think we'll fill up pretty quickly. Evan, if you just want to go to the last slide, budgets for ASM haven't come out for 2023 yet, so I'm hoping by next board meeting we'll have all of those in place to give you a comparison. Only other thing I'd like to add is through this process, we are continuing to identify, little things that we can do here and there to keep the building up at its best. We always like when people come through the door, they say, "Oh, you guys still look brand new." We love that comment. So we've done a lot of painting over the last month or so, a lot of preventative maintenance, a lot of, fixing of wallpaper and, really taking a look at the building, maybe stuff that people don't see, but we do, to really make sure that we continue to keep it fresh. We've, with Duncan's assistance, we've installed some, and the board's assistance, we've installed some chair rail upstairs to protect the walling, around the exterior of the room, the bumps, the nicks, the tray stands, Mazzone's stuff that they do. So, we really continue to review on a monthly basis, little areas that we can improve and keep us looking the way we are. So, thank you for that.
Shannon, do you think that estimate, that budget would be available before the EI committee meeting? 'Cause the
Most
budget
definitely.
meeting is the latter part of July,
Yeah.
EI committee is the middle.
Yeah, most definitely. I should have it ready by the next round.
Right, so if it could be ready, say, toward the early part of July, then the
Yeah.
board would have a chance to review it in committee first.
Yep, sounds good. Consider it
This is
done.
for both of you, and I know you were, I believe, in person at the Sports Foundation meeting, and we were trying to be on the phone.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't working real well.
Yeah.
Moving here.
Yeah, next one will be better.
But do we have any sense of what the role of this building is going to be for NCAA?
I think that's
Basketball.
still to be determined,
Yeah.
the meeting that we have on May 5th with the MAC commissioner will help to outline
Drive, yeah.
more of what the expectation is going to be. There's already pushback from the hotels because they keep raising the expectation and of how much of a hit hotels are going to have to take. You could just have 5 minutes notice that you're not keeping a team and no,
Well,
there's, yeah,
that's-
it's, well,
That's the
but
game.
the thing is, if you watch the news and read about all the challenges that NCAA is having,
Yes.
they're losing some of the strength that they have in dominating.
Time.
Exactly, the
Yeah.
decision. So we've been
Yeah.
watching it closely and thinking, okay, we understand that this is a great event for our destination and we don't want to do anything to derail it. And we want the Capitol Center to have some experience if it makes sense. But from all your years of doing this, what a heavy lift the Fan Fest is. And we're not getting attendance at those Fan Fests anymore. And that happened in Buffalo as well. We talked to our counterparts there. They just hosted. What is their experience? Their room block, the drop-off was huge. The hotels took a big hit. Their CVB has a bigger budget, so they kind of just, by a lot. So they were able to kind of pay it off and absorb it. We don't have that benefit here. So we're ready to have a big discussion with the commissioner about, you guys are demanding more, we're getting less, what kind of power do you think you have to continue to demand this of destinations? We want to host it, but we can't host it if it's killing our already decimated hotels. Not saying we're not going to host it, but we need a little give back. That they've taken away so many things that used to drive people's desire to be part of this. We can't give away tickets anymore. We can't use
Yeah.
logos of
Yeah.
sponsors even at the Fan Fest anymore. So, I think there's probably 2 months worth of conversation before we can really answer the question about how that's going to impact this building. But Shannon will be part of all of that
Yep.
and
Yeah.
you'll know where we are.
Great.
I had the same challenges in terms of getting into that meeting. So
Yeah.
I was listening but not able to participate.
Yeah.
And that
But on a
was,
sidebar conversation, I was very discouraged to hear that they may not be having referees, officials, and scheduling meetings associated with that in Albany. And I
Yep.
think that, from a leverage, from a negotiating perspective, we should try to push the commissioner to consider bringing some of those in. That'll help hotels, it may help us as well. Not trying
Yeah.
to be selfish about this, Joe, because small meetings at hotels are important too.
Right.
We're not trying to get all the business. But if, as part of our negotiations, discussions, we could ask them to have some of those ancillary events, that'll increase hotel rooms too,
Exactly.
because the refs are gonna
Everybody
have to
don't
come
go.
into town, the
Yeah.
officials and
They don't
everything else.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
always been a tradition,
Yeah.
and yet they seem to be backing away from it.
Exactly, and those are the things, like they're pulling out the benefits that we've experienced every year. There's another benefit lost to
Yeah.
us, and more demanded of us.
And
So-
part of the reason I brought up the hybrid before is that specifically, they were talking about using a hybrid as an alternative. And we're trying to make the point to your point, Michelle, and I think it was a very acute word you used, you said it's fine, but it's not equivalent.
Right.
Yeah.
You had said that a long time ago, and I think that needs to be part of our pitch.
Right, it's certainly not equivalent experience, but also for the destination, that
Yeah.
it's another pain point we have, so it's a
Right.
very good point. And I know that the AV or the audio was terrible for all of you, that was, we were hosted by George Hurst, he wanted to host the first one, and we got what we got there, so we apologize for that. So we'll be here next time, and.
No,
We'll upgrade you.
I wasn't going there, that wasn't,
no.
that wasn't the issue. But it's part of the.
You weren't, I just wanted to say it out loud.
But it's part of the reason, and, credit to ACES and whatnot, and to ASM, it's part of the reason we offered to host going
Right,
forward. But I
yeah.
understand George wanted the first one out of the gate.
Yeah.
Not a problem, but, we would like to accommodate going forward, and I know, Jay, you sent something out the other day.
May 16th.
And we'll report on the May 5th meeting on the 16th to the full group. and
Yep.
that-
But if a conversation has to be had ahead of time and we want to participate in that, or you want us to participate, Shannon, I'll throw you under the bus. and I'll be part of it too. Well, I think we, I think,
Welcome to the.
No,
world
no,
of us.
for
you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
we need to say, hey, look,
Yeah.
the destination needs more. Because
Yeah.
we're seeing this across the board, and you had mentioned some other clients a few moments
Yeah.
ago, where the expectations are very, very high, the
Right.
return is limited and lessening.
Yeah.
And,
And I don't know if ASM is having these conversations with any of the other facilities that host NCAA. But, we're having it with our counterparts that host, and deep conversations about how Buffalo will deal with this in the future are in the works. But also, the equity question, whatever we provide to the men's this year, we really should be providing to the women's next year.
Yeah.
The ROI on that is even less for us. So there's a lot of big conversations that we've never had to have in the past that we're having now. Though we should have been having the equity one many years prior, but those are just some of the things that we've been discussing internally on the sports commission side.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Great, thanks, guys.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good.
Good. All right, I'll try to, I know this feels very thick, so there's not a lot in each slide, so we're gonna fly through this, but, next slide. Our team now, I know our guests don't, but, I'm Eliza Bianco, and, our team is overseen by Megan Baker. You see Barry in the building a lot. He is a part of our creative services department, does a lot of the video, graphics for the team, and Rachel Murray is the day-to-day point of contact and, helps run the account as well. So we're going to be, next slide, I'm just going to be talking today mostly on a lot of the proactive media relations that we are doing on behalf of the Albany Capital Center. These are just some metrics that we wanted to point out. Ad value equivalency always looks very impressive. I would argue, and I think I've said this before to this group, that while that number is impressive, again, this is showing if we were to purchase the space where we're seeing ads, that's what it would cost. Again, this is only pulling from online, so a lot of our coverage does end up in print as well as on TV. That's a good number, but we like to think that maybe it's even worth more than that because of that third-party endorsement is even better than an ad. So, and again, journalist Twitter reach, that's nice. That's when a journalist tweets out like an article that the ACC has been in, that's going to their followers, so that's how many people are seeing those. And again, this is a result of 12 pieces of online coverage. Again, that's proactive coverage where, the ACC gets mentioned a lot every day in the press, but this is pieces that we're going after strategically for, different campaigns that we have going on. So next slide. This is just an example of the press releases we've sent out since January. So again, we had the new website, the improvements, HV GamerCon with the Albany Capital Center as a partner in that. The 5-year anniversary was a big piece that we'll get into a little bit throughout the presentation. And then we did send out a Earth Day press release as well. So next slide. Okay, next slide. So, so as part of our strategy around the 5-year anniversary, we were we shot and edited a anniversary message from Shannon. We produced a slew of testimonials, Sorry.
No,
The
you're,
close.
I'm just
Oh,
saying
my
that
face.
my mouth is always open in every picture that they grab of me.
Shannon's really good on these videos. I don't know if you watch them, but so we did a slew of testimonials from about 10 people that ranged from people who were involved in the creation of the building all the way to a lot of local officials. We did some design for social media headers, and then we also it all kind of came together in an anniversary newsletter that included a lot of these videos, stats, testimonials, and a thank you message from the building. And Shannon, next slide. To supplement that, we did do some paid advertising. We did a homepage takeover with the Times-Union. So those are just some stats around what that produced. We did some underwriting with WAMC, and we did a profile of success piece that ran in March 18th, which is more of like an advertorial. And then again, to supplement the paid, we did a press release and pitch, the 5-year and just sort of stats sort of surrounding what the building has accomplished over these last 5 years. Slide. And this is just showing you some of the work. Again, that's the Times-Union homepage with some of the ads. And then the piece on the right is what was published in the Albany Business Review. Next page. Next page. This last quarter, we did assist with GamerCon. Really, this was fun. We love working on GamerCon. It's a fun event that highlights the building in such a unique way, and being able to position the ACC as sort of at the forefront of the esports industry and being a destination for that. So this is, again, some stats just around, this is all coverage from GamerCon, which the Albany Capital Center was also included in. So that's great. Next slide. And then this is some of the social engagement. You either may have been here or may have been aware, but we held a media pro-am with some local officials here at the Albany Capital Center, and we sort of showed them how to play video games, and it was really fun, really successful. So this is just a lot of sort of the chatter on Twitter, with mentions of these people being in the building and getting ready for the competition. You can keep going. And next slide. So as part of our services with the Albany Capital Center, yes, we do media relations, but we have a full creative services suite. So this last quarter, we have developed 3 videos, which included the anniversary message from Shannon, all the testimonials, the 10 that that we did in our studio, as well as some sent some in to us. And then we also did a video highlighting the air filtration. And then this department at Baker PR assists with infographics, fact sheets, social media graphics, and any other marketing initiatives that the facility might need. So again, that's kind of it. Our objectives always are to position the property as a leading events destination to national media. So we continue to pitch media. Again, we're working on some contributed articles right now. We're getting a lot of interest for, putting Shannon forth as sort of like a thought leader in the event space. So that's been really successful. And then again, regionally here is really just to promote the economic impact of the facility and drive attendance to events whenever they need that sort of support. So.
Thank you, Eliza.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any questions for Baker, Liza? You guys on the screen okay up there?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on then to operational updates. And Duncan, you want to talk about epoxy flooring?
Good morning. Yes, if you could turn to page or to tab 5, the first item is the recommendation to award. Through email, phone, and direct conversation, ASM and the ACCA worked together to find 2 firms that were willing to bid the epoxy floor in the loading dock. In some ways, this is business that we just couldn't afford the first time around, but would have done it. And it's an area that gets a high amount of use, of course, but it's also an area for food storage, something that we want to have look as good as the back of house that you're familiar with. The apparent low is Tech Protective Coatings, a local firm, Waterford, New York. The apparent low was $37,122. The recommendation award is therefore to Tech Protective Coatings. in speaking with Shannon and her team, it looks as if this work can be done the second week in July, the week that begins the 11th. They would be in here on the 12th, and they'd be done that week and portions of the following week. The truck dock would be partially out of service during that period of time, but we are able to work around that. So I would ask the board to then look at the resolution that backs that up, which asks for permission to proceed with a contract to Tech Protective.
Any questions for Duncan? I mean, the back of house looks so good, it'll be a big,
The other thing
plus for
too is the
us.
back of house maintains much better than
Yeah.
it did with just the bare concrete floors.
Yeah.
And I think that's consistent with what you and your team have found.
The cleaning has been much smoother process for
Yeah,
us, for
because
sure.
the concrete floor could be clean, but would never look
Look
clean,
clean,
whereas the
right.
epoxy floor looks clean.
right.
And given that food service handles through the truck dock, that it isn't simply just unloading crates of, non-food items, I think it'll give it.
Okay, so we have a resolution before us for the epoxy flooring. May I have, Steve, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Sarah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Great.
very much. The next item is just a summary, and that's sort of a takeaway. If there are any questions about it, I'd be glad to, but you're familiar with this, as we've been
Yep.
providing each meeting, sort of gives us where we are and what we've done. And I say we, meaning ASM together. And as Shannon mentioned, upstairs, an area of high impact was the east wall of the level 2, which was just getting pounded between chairs and tables and things, just accidental types of things, no intentional damage. But that's cleaned up very well. New wallpaper, plus an impact chair rail that should prevent the damage going forward. We've done work on the truck dock. We put up a plywood wall to be able to hang things on, but also gives a very clean appearance, and it protects the insulation down there. We're in the process of organizing and finding things and finding places to store things. So there are a lot of little things that are going on. It's pretty much summed up by this list. If you have any questions, we're glad to answer them, but we'll just keep using this as an update.
that's
And
it.
the next time, we should be able to report that the epoxy floors are in place.
Great. And then,
Yeah.
surprise, legal report. Duncan?
Yeah, I apologize for the last-minute nature of this. We were informed by Empire Tech, which is our IT service and cloud storage provider, that the governor signed into law at some point in time, less than 180 days ago, that employers, with the exception of certain public entities, of which we do not qualify as a state authority, because we're not a government per se. So we are subject to this rule that requires employers to notify employees in advance of monitoring their internet use and emails. And as you have only one employee, it's sort of a difficult situation here, but so I took that information and sent it to council so we'd have an independent opinion. Bob did his research and confirmed that in fact the law was signed, because at one time there was only the Senate bill available, but there is an S bill or Assembly bill as well, and it was signed. And this essentially just establishes an additional policy for the authority, which we will publish, we'll put on the website as well, indicating that we comply with this new law.
A little scary, but okay.
Well, I mean, the use of the email is pretty limited. There's some overlap. You know, I can't say that people haven't written to me on a personal level if they know where I am, but I mean, there's nothing there that has been stored that would be any concern. But the board has the right to monitor it. They just have to notify me in advance. That's what this lays out.
Okay.
So it's nothing that I would ever object to as an employee, but as there is an inherent conflict being the only employee presenting something to you, that's why I went to council. So it is the recommendation of council that we proceed. You know. And Bob wasn't able to join us this morning because unfortunately he's home quarantining, and I guess his symptoms are a little bit more than mild, but he seems to be doing okay.
Okay.
So
Any questions
sorry
about this
that.
before I take a motion?
Michelle, I do have a question. Is this just the monitoring of your email, Duncan, or of the members' emails as well?
Dan, it's my understanding it would be only the employee account. It has nothing to do with direct monitoring of any of the members. That said, any members that communicate with me, those emails are retained in their cloud-based storage. So there would be access to that, but that would be the limit. It would only be communication by and between this employee and any board members.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. Motion on this resolution? Steve, thank you. Michael, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, and I think that's a wrap, I believe. Yes? You didn't have anything else, Duncan?
Nothing else unless you have questions for us.
No? Thank you.
Michelle?
Yes.
Somebody, public comment, a couple people wrote that they have one public comment.
Oh, okay.
It got tucked away in here, apologize.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
Did you want? No, that means you gotta sing a song.
That's
one way to empty the room.
It's a tough crowd.
I know.
No. Then I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Sarah, thank you. Steve, thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Mike, and.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Sorry.
Hope you're both well.
Yeah, be well.
See you soon. Take care.
Thank you. I'm in the right spot, I can tell you that. Thank you.
All right.